Hi, welcome. It's time for Coffee with Me. I'm Susan B. Lochocki, running for President of the United States with the Green Party. And this is my temporary kitchen. Welcome. Today is Funny Friday, August 14th, and I actually have to admit I don't feel very funny today, so it's not going to be funny. I want to go over something with you because I know some of the people who are watching my videos don't know all the subtleties of the things around voting in the United States and how they got mismanaged and how they're still being affected today, as we now know with the post office that the right ballots don't always get delivered. Anyway, so one of the not so funny things I want to talk to you about is, I guess maybe we'll call this an unfunny Friday, are the Jim Crow laws. Now, I know some of you don't know what these are, or maybe you do but forgot. But there was a lot of reasons why black women actually weren't allowed or weren't able to vote when they actually got the vote 100 years ago, along with the white women. And so did Native Americans, but for whatever reason, through the Jim Crow laws, things were able to be kept separate, and these things were not really available. So anyways, let me read this, and it's from Wikipedia. I'm always reading from Wikipedia, so it's sort of, the concept is that it's the same sort of information that we're all getting. So Jim Crow laws were state and local laws that enforced racial segregation in the southern United States. These laws were enacted in the late 19th and 20th centuries by white Democratic-dominated state legislatures to disenfranchise and remove political and economic gains made by black people during the Reconstruction period. The Jim Crow laws were enforced until my birth year, 1965. So only 55 years ago. In practice, Jim Crow laws mandated racial segregation in all public facilities in the states of the former Confederate States of America, and in some others beginning in the 1870s. So just after the 15th Amendment was created, then these laws were also created. Jim Crow laws were upheld in 1896 in the case of Plessy versus Ferguson, in which the U.S. Supreme Court laid out its separate but equal legal doctrine for facilities for African Americans. Moreover, public education had essentially been segregated since its establishment in most of the South after the Civil War from 61 to 65. That's 1861. The legal principle of separate but equal racial segregation was extended to public facilities and transportation, including the coaches of interstate trains and buses. Facilities for African Americans were consistently inferior and underfunded compared to the facilities for white Americans. Sometimes there were no facilities for the black community. As a body of law, Jim Crow institutionalized economic, educational, and social disadvantages for African Americans living in the South. Jim Crow laws and Jim Crow state constitutional provisions mandated the segregation of public schools, public places, public transportation, and the segregation of restrooms, restaurants, drinking fountains between white and black people. The U.S. military was already segregated. President Woodrow Wilson, a Southern Democrat, initiated the segregation of federal workplaces in 1913. In 1954, segregation of public schools, state-sponsored, was declared unconstitutional by the U.S. Supreme Court under Chief Justice Earl Warren in the landmark case Brown versus the Board of Education. In some states, it took many years to implement this decision, while Warren Court continued to rule against the Jim Crow laws in other cases, such as Heart of Atlanta Motel Incorporated versus the United States in 1964. Generally, the remaining Jim Crow laws were overruled by the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and then the Voters' Rights Act of 1965. So that brings you up to date on voter segregation, voter suppression is what I'm actually looking for. So although the laws have been struck down from these other acts that we had, there is still voter suppression going on, very much so. And this also needs to stop. We can no longer hold